Cullen, second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Yarnell. Questions or comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Okay, and the last motion is to approve the 6th grade ELA pilot, language arts.
Okay, motioned by Mrs. Cullen,
Second.
seconded by Dr. Yarnell. Questions or comments from board members?
I just wanted to, it's the be a writer or being a writer pilot. I wanted to be more specific.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from board members? Okay, I just have one comment. I love it at the elementary school, so I'm excited to see it go to middle school. So I'm really excited about this one. I'm glad that, and I'm hearing that after this, we are going to evaluate up through our the rest of the middle school and the high school as well to make sure that this is we see continuous progress on this. So that's my comment. Anyone else? Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, the next curriculum committee meeting is currently scheduled for September 10th, unless we have a need for another one.
Thank you. Okay, Finance Committee. The first motion is to approve the Finance Committee meeting minutes for June 6th. Do I have a second? Okay, motion by Mrs. Vanis Clemens, second by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, the next, I'm going to make a motion to approve the final general fund budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 with revenues of $137,553,944 and expenditures of $138,141,842, authorizing the use of $587,898 in budgetary balance commitment, and setting the tax rate at 135.2555 mils of real estate tax, which is, not raising taxes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Vanis Clemens, seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members?
Although it will be immaterial to the public, I do not see this as a wise move to have a motion like this changed at the 11th hour, literally. Saturday night we received an email. Actually, I didn't receive it Saturday night. It came to my computer. I happened to be in Brooklyn and then celebrated Father's Day, so I didn't see it until this morning. That's my fault. But I do think that things like this, especially a budget issue that we've discussed for months and months, and which we had a committee meeting June 6th, which in theory was the final discussion of that, should not be implemented in the way it was implemented. As I said, it's immaterial to the public because they will see no change in the tax rate that we're imposing upon them and no change from this year as well. It has the advantage, obviously, of drawing less from fund balance, not one of my favorite things to do, to not have a truly balanced budget, but to have a structural deficit, which we do, as we did last year. Not a very large one in the scheme of things, but large enough, maybe too large for some of us. So I'm going to vote no on this motion.
Other questions or comments?
I have a question and then I have some comments. So one question I have is for Mr. Daubert. I'm just wondering, because in the email and in the President's report it was stated that the summer hours weren't taken into account when figuring the solicitor's fee. So I was wondering how you estimate the hours that are needed over the course of the year, and then obviously you multiply it by the rate. But I'm just
That was actually my email. So what I was saying is that we took 6 weeks, which is during a peak time, because that's what billing we have from him, and we averaged those 6 weeks to what that would be for a year. And what I'm saying is that by taking the 6 weeks of a peak time, it doesn't take into account off-peak times. That's all I was suggesting. But it doesn't really make a difference because we didn't take those things into account in this.
The email says that you had 6 weeks of $22,615, and that equates to $15,076 over 4 weeks. It doesn't say that you multiplied that by 12, because you just compare it to it being in line with what we paid Mr. Cox. But I looked at, if you took, and I don't know where you got the bills, because Mr. Dahlberg in his email said today that he sent us the bills for Eckert Siemens from April 23rd, which was the day, which was before they were actually hired, to April 30th. And then he says, I am not in receipt of the May Eckert Siemens bills at this time. So that's one thing.
So when you say before they were hired, again, the bill that you're looking at is a bill that has all of the billing for Eckert and Siemens. So we've been contracted with them for over a year for labor services. So I don't know without looking at the specific line items, and again, we'd have to get back to you on that information, what you're talking about as far as you suggesting that those are solicitor amounts. I don't know the answer to that. I would have to look at that. But as far as the billing, I reached out to Eckert and Siemens to find out if they could give me a total. I think the billing I don't think the billing has been sent out, but they gave us the total of what it was because they were processing it. So we were able to get those totals from them so that we could make this adjustment to actual numbers.
Okay. The Eckert Siemens bill is divided into interim solicitor work and labor negotiations, so you'll be able to see that very clearly. But if you look at their numbers just in April, which was for 7 days, it was $4,282, divided by 7 days was $611 per day, times 30 days is $18,353, you could say, for 30 days. Eastburn and Gray in April for 23 days was $10,135. If we divide that by 23 and then multiply it by 30, it's $13,220. So you have a difference of 18,000 versus 13,000. I also looked at the Eastburn and Gray bills from April of 2017, and they were $12,085.75. So lower. So it's hard. I mean, one thing is that, you know, the administration looks at the bills over the course of the year and takes an, you know, an estimate. That was what I was asking Mr. Dahlberg, but that he didn't have a chance to answer, you know, how he calculated the number of hours. But that, I mean, to me, it's, I mean, that's one point, but I agree with Dr. Yarnell that the way that this happened, there was no discussion at a committee meeting regarding the solicitor fees, and the email that we received was sent on Saturday, June 16th, which was just 2 days ago, and not everybody you know, has access to their email over the weekend or checks their email on the weekend. But it says, and this is from the board president, I asked Sean to update the budget with the actual cost. So I've never seen a budget where one person changed the budget before it came to the board. So I find that the process, you know, we haven't followed the correct process for, you know, approving the budget. This wasn't, you know, the budget was presented at the May meeting and at the June meeting with numbers for the solicitor, and then on Saturday, an email was sent saying that it was changed by one board member. So I will be voting no on the budget.
Other questions? Other questions or comments from board members? Okay, I just want to note that there are also plenty of bills from our former solicitor that far exceeded that number. So I mean, you can cherry pick small ones, but there's also significantly higher ones. And so that's why we took an average. But it doesn't make sense to take the hours of one attorney and the rates of another attorney, mesh them together, and put them in the budget as a guess of what it's going to be. It makes more sense to use accurate numbers. I mentioned at the last committee meeting that that was my intention to do that once we have the numbers. And the options that were available were that we either make this motion tonight and I make a motion to amend it to reflect that change, or I make the change so you can all view it ahead of time, and then if you don't like it, you can vote against it, and if there's not enough support for it, then someone can make a motion to vote it through the other way. But I chose this method because it's more transparent. You have access to all the details where you wouldn't have access to those details if I made a motion to amend it in the middle of a meeting. So that was why I chose that path. There's a motion and a second. Other questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Mrs. Banis Clemens?
Yes?
Mrs. Cullen?
Yes.
Mrs. Dolan? Ms. Kildare? Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Yardley?
No.
Dr. Yardell?
No.
Okay, motion passes 5-2. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the levying of taxes, which includes the 1% earned income tax, the 0.5% real estate transfer tax, and $5 local services tax. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion from Mrs. Banis Clemens, seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? Okay, roll call vote.
Dr. Yardell?
Yes.
Mrs. Yardley?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller? Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Kildare?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullen?
Yes.
Mrs. Banis Clemens?
Yes. Okay, the next motion is to approve the 2018 Homestead and Farmstead Exclusion Resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members?
Mr. Dowd, what is the specific amount that the residents will see taxpayers per property?
The specific assessed value is $1,467 reduction in the assessed value, which equates to just under $200. It's down about $2 from year to year because there's more properties approved this year.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to set installment dates August 31st, October 31st, and December 15th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the commitment of funds for the year ending 2017-2018. E-Finance Plus, $15,986. Peasers, $6,041,781. Budgetary balance, $587,898. Capital projects to be determined prior to the completion of the 2017-2018 audit cycle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, the next motion is to approve the stop-loss renewal agreement with HM Insurance Group for the fiscal year 2018-2019. with 200,000 specific deductible, premium $599,813. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Motion to approve the life insurance renewal agreement with Principal Life Insurance Company, the life insurance rate of 10 cents per $1,000 of coverage, and AD&D rate of .015 cents per $1,000 of coverage. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Kildare. Questions or comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to accept and approve the renewal quotes from Willis Towers Watson as listed below. PSBA Insurance Trust Property, General Liability, and Auto Liability, $379,110. PSBA Insurance Trust Boiler and Machinery, $22,102. PSBA Insurance Trust Commercial Umbrella Liability, $47,736. PSBA Insurance Trust School Leaders Liability, $64,546. School District Insurance Consortium Workers' Compensation, $328,883. And PSBA Insurance Trust Cyber Liability, $12,998. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I'm going to make a motion to approve the Nutritional Services Employees Compensation and Benefits Plan effective July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Dr. Yarnell. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the contracts A through double D. I'm going to save you from reading all of that to you. Does anyone want any voted on separately? No? Okay. Questions or comments from board members? Oh, I'm sorry, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve settlement agreements for students identified as 2018-40 and 2018-43. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Going to make a motion to approve the PSBA membership renewal 2018 to 2019 in the amount of $15,025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members?
I just have a comment. I realized I had asked a question about the dues. I wasn't aware of how we use our membership. Mr. Daubert provided a lot of good information about how we make use of the benefits of the membership. And I think, Mr. Daubert, are all those things that we approved, those in that one of the last items with the PISPA insurance, those different things were examples of how we realize discounts as a result of being members of the PSBA. So it added up to nearly as much as what our membership, what we spend on the membership. So I think it is worthwhile. And then the administration also uses their services quite a bit, which I wasn't aware of. So I'm glad I have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the 2018-2019 breakfast and lunch prices. For elementary, the lunch price will be $2.50. For middle school and high school, lunch will be $3. Reduced lunch is 40 cents. Elementary lunch is $1.25. Middle school breakfast, $1.50. High school breakfast, $1.75. Reduced breakfast, 30 cents. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Kildare. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve student activity accounts A through AC. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to accept an award bid and RFP results A through I. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Kildare. Questions or comments from board members? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve bank depositories as listed for 2018-2019 fiscal year. Items A through F. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Yarnell. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the cooperating purchasing participation as listed below for 2018-2019 fiscal year, items A through H. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Almost made it, one left before it died. Motion to approve the end of the year payment of all bills received and payable through June 30th, 2018 as necessary. Bill lists will be forwarded to all board members prior to the release of the checks. Any checks in question will be resolved before they are released for payment. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Kildare. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, facilities. I'll take care of this for Mrs. Dolan. I know she had an emergency and wasn't able to come. Oh, sorry, the next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for July 10th. I'm going to make a motion to approve the Facilities Committee meeting minutes for June 6th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, going to make a motion to approve obsolete items A through G. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I'm going to make a motion to approve the PTO to purchase and install a Gaga pit at Grass Elementary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Walters. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the RFP and bid results, items A through G. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Going to make a motion to seek bids for new school buses. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Yarnell. Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. The IU, did anyone provide any, did Mrs. Miller provide any information to anyone to cover for the IU? Okay. The IU met on May 14th, and the next meeting is scheduled for June 19th.
Mrs. Bennett Clemens, I believe she was, that was the same night
Yeah.
as the board meeting, and so she couldn't be at both, so she was at this boarding, she wasn't at the IU board meeting, that's what she said at the last meeting.
Okay, and the next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. Okay, policy, Ms. Kildare?
There's nothing as right now, the next meeting is for September 4th.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the Upper Bucks County Technical School. Dr. Yarnell?
Thank you, Mrs. Banis-Clemens. The Upper Bucks Vocational School met on May the 17th. There was a relatively full agenda that night. We did celebrate 2 students of the month, Jordan Myers from Quakertown for April, and Eric Pagan Trinidad also from Quakertown for May. We recognized the Skills USA winners, particularly the 4 students who are headed for nationals. That's not the highest number we've ever had, but is certainly a very representative number, and I think speaks well for those students who competed in the state competition. As many of you know, the June 4th senior ceremony was held here at Pennridge High School. There were 170 graduates that were celebrated that night. Along that same line, there will be presumably roughly 270 new students at the VOTEC next year, an increase of approximately 100 if all those students come as scheduled. And of those 270, 103 are Pennridge students, so that will mean, that's the good news, bad news scenario. That will mean that we will have more students, which is a good thing. It also means we will pay more of the bills, which is not quite such a good thing. There was a hazardous waste collection on June 2nd at the vocational school, as there is, not on June 2nd, but every year one is held there. We approved new members of the Occupational Advisory Committee that helps determine what should be done or had by the programs at the vocational school. Numbers of other typical things. We did provide a new food services contract, which includes the $10,000 contribution through Mrs. Giantaro, who I think has contributed significantly to the assistance of the food service program at the vocational school. Mr. John Jeffrey Sueda was there, the new executive director, who will be joining the VOTEC officially on July the 2nd. So it was good to have him at our meeting that night. We do have another meeting scheduled for the 21st. I would like to comment on the NOCD numbers, which, like the PSSAs. Oh, I should mention that we approved the meeting schedule for the 2018-19 school year, It's a lot easier than our meeting schedule in that we meet the third Thursday of every month except July. So the next meeting will be August 16th, 2018, unless we hold a special meeting. But the others should follow in sequence on the third Thursday of each month. In terms of our NOCD performance, this year, 2017-2018, we had 133 students tested, and of those, 88.7% tested out as competent or advanced, and 62.4% tested out as advanced. Those are pretty good numbers. They're significantly above the state averages for the other vocational schools across the state. Basic scores, there were a few basic, basic is not obviously the desirable category to fall into, but there were a few, and obviously we each year try to improve upon that performance. The other thing that I would like to mention is as here, the comprehensive plan is underway at the UBCTS, and there are two goals for this comprehensive plan. One is to increase educational opportunities for students in our community by continuing to implement innovative programming at UBCTS. The second goal is to demonstrate sound fiscal management through examining and revising the funding formula, seeking out alternative funding sources, forging new partnerships with business and industry, and improving internal systems and procedures for budget development and business office processes. As you probably know, because I've mentioned it so many times, we are involved. I am involved personally, and a board member from Palisades, Mr. Howell, who also happens to be the current chairman at the UBCTS of the JOC, and a board member from Quakertown are working on trying to reform the funding formula. Not an easy task, because generally speaking, what helps Quakertown hurts the other two districts, and what helps Pennridge hurts the other two districts, and what helps Palisades hurts the other two districts. So it undoubtedly will be a compromise, and it's a difficult issue to make changes. So that's an ongoing process. We, I think, intend to meet in conjunction with each of the upcoming JOC meetings. So that's my report for tonight. And as I said, the next meeting is the 21st, Thursday night. Thank you.
Motion?
Yes. So there is a motion tonight, and that is the approval of appointments for the members of the JOC from the Pennridge School District. Those two appointments are that Mrs. Katie Dolan be appointed for a term of 3 years to fulfill Mr. William Krause's remaining 3-year term. It's actually the remainder of the 3-year term. And the other appointment is for Mrs. Melissa Kildare for a term of 2 years to fill Mrs. Katie Dolan's remaining 2-year term. So this is a shift in the people that are serving at the vocational school. So I make that in the form of a motion.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Krause, a second? Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Mr. Krause, technology?
Thank you, Mrs. Baines-Clemens. The Technology Committee has not met. The next scheduled meeting is September 10th, 2018.
Thank you. Act 48, Mrs. Walters? Thank you. The Act 48 committee has also not met. We meet again in November 8th. Thank you. And the Pennridge Area Coordinating Committee, Mrs. Dolan, Mrs. Kildare?
Okay, so I did not go to senior awards night that night, and I believe Katie did not go either.
Can you
but
speak up a little bit, please?
I said I was not at the PAC meeting because it was senior awards night that night, and I believe Katie did not go. The next meeting will be on September, we're meeting for summer. It would be September 27th.
Old business? Does anyone have anything under old business?
I just wanted to add my thank you and congratulations to Mrs. Cron for her years of service, and also to Dr. Rattigan for her years of service. And I wanted to thank Dr. Rattigan for adding into her superintendent's report all of the individual student achievements. It was great to hear that at every board meeting, and she made sure we had that, and made sure that every board meeting we had student and or community recognition. So they were always the highlights of the meetings. So, and really keeps the board's focus on the students who are the main focus of the board. And that, and then along with, I always enjoyed the student report, so I love hearing what the student council is doing. So thank you for that. Thank you to the students, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other old business? Good.
I simply want to say thank you to Dr. Rattigan and to Mrs. Cron, and to Mrs. Yardley and Mrs. Miller in absentia. I have certainly enjoyed working with all of you. I think you have contributed to this board and this district, and I appreciate that. Obviously, I had the pleasure of being the president and working directly with Dr. Rattigan. I've worked with Mrs. Cron a long time, not quite as long as she's been in the district, but almost. So I've never known anyone else as board secretary, and that's quite a distinction for your part, on your part, I think, and congratulations on such a long and successful part of service. I personally will miss you greatly, because who am I going to call and ask what those minutes were back in 1994, right, or something like that. So thank you so much. So I wish all of you well in the next chapter of your life. As someone who retired almost 3 years ago, I think it can be a great experience. Getting old is not necessarily much fun, but you certainly can enjoy what you may not have been able to while you were working full time. So best of wishes and good luck to all.
Thanks. Thank you. Anyone else have anything under old business? I just wanted to point out one thing. I was looking up April 23rd as was suggested, and I did reach out to Eckert and Siemens directly after the board meeting that same evening, as soon as that change was made, because I wanted to make contact with them as soon as possible. So I don't know if, again, I haven't seen the details you're talking about, but that may be what is reflected in that bill. I was actually surprised to reach them that late, but I actually was. So they did get back to me, and I did speak to them that evening. So I don't know if that is the billing, but I will get clarification on that for the next meeting. And now I just lost you on the other computer. Okay. Do we? A special board meeting is scheduled for July 10th, 2018. The next regular school board meeting is scheduled for July 23rd, 2018. An executive session will follow tonight's meeting for the purpose of discussion of the terms and conditions of employment of a number of district employees, as well as labor and arbitration matters. Questions and comments from guests? Okay.
Sue Furlong, West Rockville Township. I want to talk about two things. One is the legal fees, and the other is irregularities in the budgets. Not these. I recall a few years back, the legal fees, poor Dave Thompson decided to have a solicitor at every board meeting, and absolutely got raked over the coals by the coalition for it. That we were going to have such high legal fees. And when the coalition got elected to the board, they never skipped a beat. They always also had a solicitor. So, you know, the disingenuousness of some of the remarks that were made tonight, I'm looking at people on the board complaining about legal fees who ran up $150,000 trying to put the tax collectors out of business all the way to the Supreme Court and lost. I'm looking at people who paid ungodly amounts that I don't think really ever came out into the public to attorney fees, because when the school right here was built, we did not hire a project contractor, and we paid ungodly amounts of legal fees to settle contractor suits. I remember when we didn't bid for anything. We just went out and whatever our favorite vendor was, we would give them the business. And you know, that's a cost item in the budget. I remember when just a couple of years ago, if not last year, irregularities with the Upper Bucks budget, and there was $225,000. I don't know how many years we paid that in a gentleman's agreement rather than follow the formula. And that didn't seem to bother a couple of people that sure seemed unhappy tonight. The other thing is last year when the Upper Bucks budget was discussed, it was not mentioned the amount in the meeting, it was not mentioned in the agenda, and it was not mentioned in the minutes. So for some people to get so irate that they vote against irregular things in the budget, I'll take anybody who is willing to scrutinize the numbers a little bit harder, a little bit closer, and see if they can shave something out of the budget legitimately, which I think is